This is Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get on. It's just been going to get on. And welcome to the best hour or so in the universe. It's Reasonable Doubt. I'm Adam Carolla. It's Mark Garrigus in New York City.
New York City. Beautiful day here today, by the way.
What are you working on in New York?
I've got a case that is scheduled to go to trial in a week, so I'm just getting ready. And unfortunately, not going to go to Vegas and see Big 3 today, which I wanted to, and I did 2 weeks ago. I had a very good time in Vegas.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going to Vegas myself shortly.
When are you going?
I'm going in next weekend for Jimmy's cousin Sal's 50th birthday, where he's invited everybody, and it shall be good. There's going to be there's going to be hijinks shall ensue. That's the way I look at it.
I think it's a pretty good bet that will be quite an event. In fact, unfortunately for me, I will not be in Vegas that weekend. I will be, I think, maybe in New Orleans instead. Otherwise, I'd crash the 50th birthday party.
What is?
Do you remember remember your 50th birthday?
Trying to think of what the hell I know what I did. All roads lead to Jimmy. As I recall, me and Danny Two Sheets, that's Daniel Kellison, named Danny Two Sheets. He's me, Danny, or Daniel, and Jimmy sort of did the man show. We always sat in the same office, and Daniel lived in New York, and he came out to stay with me when we're doing the man show, sort of in between finding a house to rent or something like that. And I said, you can just sleep. I got a sofa bed. You can just stay with me at my house and sleep on the sofa bed. And the reason he's called Danny Two Sheets is I made up the bed for him, and he got into it. And at some point, he came to my bedroom or something, and he said, hey, where's the upper sheet? And I said, what upper sheet? And he said, there's a sheet, there's the lower sheet, the fitted sheet, and then there's the upper sheet. And I said, what are you talking about? There's no two sheets. He's like, yeah, most people have a sheet on top of the other sheet. I said, what do you need two sheets for? You got your goddamn sheet and you got your comforter. Now just go to bed. And he was like, you don't understand, Adam. People have two sheets. And I was like, all right, Danny Two Sheets. So I started calling him Danny Two Sheets. But then I started telling everyone, you believe this guy wants two sheets? And everyone looked at me and went, yeah, that's what people do. They have two sheets. And I realized my childhood was so bereft of sheets or love or hugs or anything that this notion of having a second sheet would be like having a salad fork, at a restaurant. Like, what do you need two forks for? You got a fork. Like, I come from such weird, uncouth people in poverty that the idea of an upper sheet seemed foreign and exotic to me.
Well, interestingly, when you called him Danny Two Sheets, I thought he was almost three sheets to the wind. So
no,
he was just 2/3 of the way there.
He does like to tilt a few, so he could be Danny Three Sheets, but no, he's Danny Two Sheets, and both are applicable to Daniel. But my 50th, Jimmy, because Jimmy's Jimmy, he said, you, Danny Two Sheets, and Dickie Barrett from the Boss Tones are all turning 50 in about the same, 2-week period. I'm gonna rent out cottages in wine country and some resort, and everyone's gonna go. And we're going to go out and have fine meals and fine wines and enjoy ourselves by the pool. And that he did. So that's how I celebrated.
It's very civilized. Very civilized.
Jimmy is by far the most thoughtful person I've ever met. He's just one of those. He's one of those guys. One time, many years ago, Pat O'Brien when Pat O'Brien was at the height of his powers, he would throw a big Christmas party every year and invite celebrities and luminaries from the sports world and to his large, sprawling estate up in a double gated community. And I was like, I don't know, 31 or 32. I'd barely. Again, it's still the concept of two sheets was foreign to me. And he was like, we're driving to Pat O'Brien's house, and he's like, he's pulling over. And I'm going, where are you going? I say, we got to get a nice bottle of wine. I said, no, we don't. It's a Christmas party. We'll just walk in and drink his wine. Oh, no. You do not show up with empty-handed. I said, Pat's going to be in the back smoking a cigar. Some guy's going to let us in. No one's going to be none the wiser. He said, no, absolutely not. We're going to go down. We stopped at like the Gelson's in Encino. He spent at the time, some ungodly amount of money, $44 or something on a bottle of wine that I had to go in halvesies with him. We walked into Pat's house. Pat was holding court in the backyard. Nobody was in the front room, and he just went and sat, put the bottle down, in the bar and walked. I was like, go get Pat and have him watch you put this bottle down. He's like, you bring a bottle of wine. That's what you do. So I have not seen nor talked to Pat in years. Where is Pat now? Pat was a guy who Pat loved himself some Pat. I will tell you that. He will walk you through his home and show you that drum kit. That was a gift from Michael Jordan. He gave that to me, because I told him my 12-year-old liked to play the drums. So Michael sent it over, like he was that dude,
Pat was Pat. When you say height of his powers, I mean, he had reached the mountaintop.
Yeah, he was doing all the major sporting events, probably the Olympics, certainly 6 Olympics and all the NBA finals. And I mean, he was
World Series, Super Bowl, Final Four.
He was ubiquitous, and he was a guy who came from poverty, came from, alcoholic dad and kind of a hard scrabble life. And when he got into it, he really lived it. Like he wanted to make sure that people knew he was no longer, just getting by, but he was thriving, and he loved the celebrity friends he had, and he loved the sports guys, and he loved surrounding himself with that. And he was a likable guy who was, bloviated a little bit. But you guys have some of the same DNA. You do a little less name dropping, although most of that is just being admonished by the court, so you can't. But you're big personalities, like sharing the wealth. Yeah,
he had a Pasadena connection too for a while.
Well, I'm trying to think. He grew up in some place like South Dakota. He grew up real, kind of like sharecropper, kind of, back when, poor now just means you have an iPhone 7 and not an iPhone 12, but he grew up when poor was poor, shit was cold, and you had to start a fire kind of thing, And I remember him regaling me with those stories. And then, of course, he got into some trouble because there was that whole drunken, somebody taped him calling.
He left a voicemail on some chick's phone, and she gave it up to the radio host, and he was being very sexually explicit and suggesting stuff about drug use, and it wasn't good.
He did a little drunk dialing. She recorded it, spread it out, and it seemed like that's all it took. Like it's crazy.
What year was that?
The voicemail incident was in 2005. He seemed to sort of weather the storm for a little bit, and then he went into rehab in 2008.
And then
I know there's a Pasadena connection. It's bugging me. I'm gonna tease it. So give Gary time. You know why? Do you own or rent your own home?
Mm-hmm.
Sure you do. And I bet it can be hard work. You know what's easy though? Bundling policies with Geico, Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowners, your renters, along with your auto policy, go to Geico, Geico.com. Get a quote, see how much you can save. It's Geico easy. Visit Geico today. That's Geico.com. I know there's a Pasadena connection that's bugging me.
There's a lawyer named Pat O'Brien who's in Pasadena. I don't think it's the same gentleman, but...
Hold on. There can't be more than one guy named Pat O'Brien. Come on, Gary. Dive deeper.
You know what? That's on me. I'm sorry.
You know what? As I like to say, Google Mark Wright. Google him right. Find something. I'm sure he's flown over Pasadena many times on his way into LAX. I'm sure.
There's something, and it's going to come to me by the end of this show. Gary's going to find it.
Well, this is an interesting point here, Mark, in that I am the same way as you are in many regards, which is I don't have tons of very specific recollections. I just have feelings. So somebody brings something up and I go, I got a feel that feels like something to me. And then what people do is they spend their adult life trying to convince me I'm insane for whatever feeling I had. I go, no, and they go, oh, you're wrong. There's nothing. And I go, but I got a feeling. And they go, yeah, well, your feeling's wrong. And I go, but when I feel something, then they go, well, then what is it? And I go, I don't know. Just a feeling. I will hearken back to, and every great attorney and great podcaster has to have that ability to have that feeling. The story I will always tell, and forgive me if I told you this before, Mark, people have heard it on my show enough, but many years ago when the Porcelain Punisher, Matt Fondelier, when he walked into this place of business one day, he just walked in, and I've never asked him about this before, but I just said, what's up with the shoes? And all they were was white tennis shoes. And I said, what's up with the shoes? And he said, nothing. And I said, okay. And then I went back and I ruminated. And I had a feeling. And then I came back again. And I said, I need to know what's going on with your shoes. Now, they were just white tennis shoes. And he said, nothing. There's nothing going on. I go, what's the story? He goes, nothing. I go, okay. Go back and ruminate a little more. Get that feeling a little more. I come back again. Matt, something's bothering me about these shoes. Please tell me what's going on with your shoes. He pauses and he goes, oh, they're my dad's shoes. And I said, okay. Now I'm okay. I can rest now because something was bothering me. Now it's not bothering me. But that's the whole point. I didn't know. All I knew is I had a feeling. That was bugging me, and I don't know why it was based on his footwear, but it was bothering me.
How many days or how many hours separated the first, second, and third feeling of the white?
It was all the same day.
It was all within about an hour. I watched the thing unfold as a spectator. It was quite something to see.
Yeah, but
did you ever pursue why he had his dad's shoes?
I don't get that intimate. You know why? Because it would end up with him wanting a raise. Don't ever ask an employee why he's wearing his dad's shoes, Mark. He's going to tell him because I fucking don't have enough money to afford my own goddamn shoes. Because you pay me a pittance. You don't ever do that. That's a trap, Mark. He probably did it as a setup.
That's why my people are all overpaid. I have a feeling, and I keep pursuing like a dog with a bone.
He might be trying to take it to a new level. Before you got here today, he was walking around without shoes on.
Oh, poor barefoot and pregnant Matt. Not enough for a set of supermarket flip-flops. Oh, man. The cheapest shoe ever. All right.
You remember, I had asked, do you remember what Zorries were, don't you?
Yes. Zorries, flip-flops, and Jap flaps were all the same when I was a kid.
Yeah. Zorries at Thrifty's in the big bin for like 49 cents, and you could get a pack or a pair of them. I have vivid memories of that as a kid.
Yeah.
I actually mentioned Zorries to somebody, and I might as well have just used, some Latin phrase. It went over like a.
It sounds like an Armo family that screwed you on a business deal many years ago. You ever work with the Zoris? No, don't. Do not work with the Zoris. Those guys will fuck you 10 ways to Sunday. All right. We were on a yeah.
Yeah, but Gary's got a bunch of stories, but I need to know about. I'm going to call Pat O'Brien. I'm going to find him after the show.
I've been looking this whole time. I don't know, man. He's probably gone to Pasadena.
I'm calling Pat after the show. I'm telling you, I'm going to find out. I think a ubiquitous presence is right. I miss him as a sportcaster. Who else would you say has taken his place? He's kind of the Brent Musburger of his generation.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like
for a while it was probably Bob Costas.
Yeah, I think they're contemporaries, I guess. I mean, I think kind of what happened is we just parsed it out to so many different personalities now that there's not the one big grand, Howard Cosell who just was, if you looked in the dictionary under sports announcer, it'd just be a picture of Howard Cosell. It was just ubiquitous. And now we're so fractioned off that everyone has their own set of experts. Oh, this is an interesting. So speaking of this, I'll segue into something we weren't planning on talking about. But there was the ESPN reporter female who was doing the WNBA and who was caught on a hot mic saying that they only hired the other gal because she was black, and this was some sort of affirmative action. And I don't know if she got clipped or let go, but it is.
No, I think the one who was being referred to was just signed or is about to sign a big deal with NBC.
She is. That's right.
Okay. And was the other one disciplined?
The other one was Rachel Nichols, right?
Right.
Correct.
Was she disciplined? Was she
Rachel
suspended
Nichols?
or whatever? What happened with her? Yeah.
I don't believe anything negative happened to her.
Who was the one who was caught on the hot mic?
Her name is Maria Taylor.
Right. Did she get...
No, Rachel... Hold on.
Well, you can figure
Rachel
it out.
was, I thought, on the hot mic, and Maria Taylor's the one who I think left and now just
Correct.
signed it.
Right. So Rachel Nichols was caught on a hot mic. She was talking to someone on her management team, and she was talking about Maria Taylor. And Maria Taylor was in the throes of a contract negotiation, trying to get a new contract from ESPN. She has since elected to go with NBC, and she is going to sign a giant deal with them, it sounds like.
And did anything happen with Hot Mike? And speaking of that, Mark, so we steer it back to the law, whether it's Pat O'Brien leaving a message on his Guma's phone or the hot mic. There's a lot of hot mic stuff now. Look, I did a show called Crank Yankers. We weren't allowed to call people and record them without their consent in 44 of our states. You know what I mean? There are laws that say you cannot record this, you can't distribute it, you cannot profit from it. It seems like there's a lot of that going on. Like just the whole hot mic thing sounds a little insane to me because everyone...
I didn't understand who recorded the Rachel Nichols, because I thought she was talking to her, either the manager, agent, some confidant. How did that ever get, and why was it leaked at a certain point? I mean, who leaked it?
So here's the thing. So Rachel Nichols was disciplined. She was taken off the sideline reporting. I think you said WNBA, but this all centered around the NBA Finals.
Oh, okay.
So she was taken off the sideline reporting gig for the NBA Finals and replaced with somebody else. She was apparently in a hotel room somewhere doing a remote for ESPN. That ended, and she went about her business and called this consultant, this person on her management team who is also the manager, also on the management team of LeBron James. And she was talking to him, not understanding that what she was doing was still being broadcast back to the control room in Bristol. So it was an ESPN employee who recorded this almost certainly and leaked it, several months later for whatever their motives were.
Right, but don't we have this sort of expectation of privacy? I mean, once we're off the air, I mean, anyone who's had a lav mic hooked up to them, you realize 10 seconds after that thing's hooked up, you forget all about it. And then at some point, your phone rings and you walk into the green room and you're like, I got to work with these assholes or whatever. And it's all being recorded. It's happened to me a million times.
That's exactly why the sound guy is the most dangerous guy on any set.
Right. But there's some liability for the person that records it and then distributes it or pushes it out there. Like, why is there no liability for that person?
I'm sure they're going to say there was no expectation of privacy. They should have known if they were taping. That would obviously, I think, be the argument as to why the person who leaked it from, if it turned out it was from Connecticut and ESPN, did it. And I assume that they waited till a specific time for maximum effect because, boy, it did kind of go viral almost immediately.
Well, what if you had a lav on and you're doing a hit on CNN and then at some point before the hit or after the hit, you got a phone call from a client and you were talking business with that client and somebody recorded it? Would that be terribly different than this? Because I think she thought she was wrapped, or she was wrapped. That's why she was on the phone with her person, her version of you, perhaps. You know what I'm saying?
Many years ago, when I went to get Michael Jackson and bring him to Santa Barbara, we were on a jet, and the jet operator had installed a pinhole camera and recorded Michael Jackson and I in the jet. And then I found out the next day because Greta Van Susteren called me, and Greta had been shopped the tape of Michael and I in the jet. And the guy wanted $1 million, and I called the lawyer who had shopped it to Greta, and I said, "What the hell are you doing?" And the guy had said something, my client's lottery ticket. Next thing you know, I went in, I got a court order, and the FBI kind of barged down, and the guy barged in on the guy, took it, they prosecuted him. Got a plea, I believe. I got a judgment for about $22 million, but the Court of Appeal, I'll never forget sending one of my associates in, and she stood up, and the judge basically said, "That's $22 million is ridiculous. You can either have 750 or we're going to give a new trial." And they gave us a new trial. We ended up settling it again. But in that case, you had somebody who had an intentional or an intent to steal the conversation, which was attorney-client, and then market it.
Yeah, I know. It was all chronicled in the documentary. That was the part where they did the hatchet job on you.
Well, afterwards, yes, exactly. Exactly. Very good memory, Adam. They claimed when I was going to land on you like a ton of bricks, I was really talking about poor kids who were up at Neverland like Jake.
Right. Yeah. It's beautiful. All right. Well, speaking of the FBI, I think there's a couple of stories in here. We have the Gretchen Whitmer story, right. The governor of Michigan.
Have you talked about that on the main show on the Mothership?
No, I have not, although I've studied it a little bit.
Right. What's your reaction to that? I can only imagine. I told Gary that yesterday.
Well, it was interesting because if you watch, first off, sometimes when you hear stories that just seem weird and then they just kind of go away, you should always stop and go, was that really the story? You know what I mean? So that story was, Trump-inspired white supremacist militia, going after, liberal governor, female Gretchen, and they're going to kidnap her. So, like, at first blush, it just seems weird because you just never hear about, you'll hear about a possible assassination attempts or theft or what have you, but you really never hear like kidnap. Kidnap is a weird one, and it's a weird one for this country, especially, and it's also weird. I've never seen or heard of a governor being kidnapped. So, like, number one is this is weird. Number two, when you then hear like a theme, you know what I mean? It's like, well, Trump. These people are motivated by Trump's tweets and they're white supremacists. if I hear anything about white supremacy groups anymore, I just go, all right, what's the real story, or who was this, or what's really going on? Because it's become such a catch-all and the news loves the theme. And then I didn't hear anything after it at all, really. So it always kind of made me feel like, what really happened in this story? Then recently, Tucker Carlson was getting a lot of shit for saying that there were FBI agents that were sort of embedded in the 6th Capitol riot insurrection, whatever we're calling it today. That he was saying that the FBI will routinely take informants, put them into a group, and sometimes those informants are actually cheering on the mob, so to speak, or agitating to actually make a crime. I was trying to look this one up with Gary. I'll circle back to Gretchen Whitmer in a second, but I was trying to figure out this case. It was about 1.5 or 2 years old. It was somewhere in the South. There was a case where an FBI agent had embedded himself into this, plan, this group to rob or to shoot up an outdoor parade or something like that. And the shit actually went down. Like the guy never stopped it. The guy was there. I cannot recall that story, and I was trying to have Gary find it, but I wasn't giving him enough information to find that story. I believe it was some sort of outdoor event. There was some sort of plot to shoot it up, and somehow it wasn't thwarted by the FBI who was there. But so I had heard some weeks ago that there were FBI informants in the group of the rioters from the 6th that were possibly agitating. And then there was also another story about an FBI informant calling a guy who was a DEA agent saying, come down to the rally on January 6th. And he came down, and now that guy got arrested for coming down. So when I found out that many of the members of the Gretchen Whitmer clan who were plotting against her were actually FBI guys, it all sort of made sense based on some of the information some of the stories I'd heard coming in.
It's interesting because you come in from that perspective, but perspective I come from is that it's amazing to me still in this day and age that we still use, whether they are actual agents who are undercover or they're agents or they're snitches, what I call a snitch, somebody who's cooperating. It's amazing the extent to which that is still used, given these periodic scandals around it. I mean, I remember years ago the ones in LA County that were unbelievable, and they were well documented as having been snitches who would fabricate supposed confessions and things of that nature. And it's amazing that we still, every once in a while, it'll turn out somebody recants something that they supposedly said or heard somebody say when proven that they couldn't have done it. And yet it still exists. It's almost like it's an endless loop, and we just can't rid ourselves of the idea of informants.
Well, I think that most reasonable people would say that if there was a group, let's just say terrorists, and there was a sleeper cell, and they're planning to blow up the port of Los Angeles, we can all agree that we'd like an FBI guy to infiltrate that cell and thwart their mission or report on it. At a certain point, if the FBI guy is saying, I have an idea, let's blow up the port of LA, at a certain point when he becomes the leader of the group, as sort of reported on this Gretchen Whitmer case, which Gary can get into, at some point when there's more FBI guys in the sleeper cell than there are Al-Qaeda, then it starts to feel kind of weird, and they're pushing the agenda, which that's the scary part. This was in Garland, Texas. So Gary's finally found this story. I was only able to give him bits and pieces of it.
Yeah, it's involving cartoon images of Muhammad, and apparently an FBI agent had been monitoring a couple of terrorist, sympathizers for a while, communicating with them even over social media. And at the time of the attack, when the first shots were fired, the undercover FBI agent was in the car behind the shooters. So he was right there.
Right. So he wasn't able to thwart what was going on.
Correct.
So
they were eventually put down by police officers, not even the FBI agent.
All right. Now, what about Pat O'Brien in his Pasadena connection?
I'm sure he has been to fucking Pasadena. Jesus.
Well, you're able to find my story.
The man's had a fucking martini in Pasadena. I don't know what you want from me.
You're signing Gary's checks. That's why. He's wearing his dad's shoes.
So what is it, Gretchen? It was it Politico that came out with this story a couple of days ago?
I got to be honest with you, I'm not sure who first broke it, but it has been widely reported since that there are up to 12 FBI informants that were used to build this case that ultimately, I believe, came down on 6 people. So there was 18 people involved in this plot, but it's a possibility that 2/3 of them were actually FBI informants. One of the informants became at one point the number 2 person in the structure, and was sort of mandating what the people below them would do and helping facilitate the plan of the person who he was working with. As the story has gone on, the FBI agent who has sort of been at the center of this and testifying in court about it, Richard Trask, has since been arrested and charged with smashing his wife's head against a nightstand after they attended a swingers party. So it's a whole mess.
Yeah. So Mark, I don't know where you come down, but like I said, infiltrating Al-Qaeda, I'm fine with that. Actually creating your own militia, mostly comprised of FBI agents, and then hatching a plan doesn't really feel like a good use of law enforcement material and time.
Well, I think what we need to drill down on is, were they agents, or undercover agents, or were they informants trying to work something off, or were they registered confidential informants, which, by the way, that is a thing. You can be a registered informant and actually have a number for a law enforcement agency. And so I would need more information on that. I mean, I'm with you. Sometimes, the prosecution argument for that generally is look, you can't, the same argument that they make with witnesses. Don't hold our witnesses against us. This is who participates in these kinds of crimes, blah, blah, blah. That's the argument. But I think it's a bigger deal if they're actually agents than if they're just people trying to work off a beef.
The reports I've seen have not suggested they are agents. They have suggested that they are informants, though it has not been made clear whom or if any of them are registered, confidential informants, or whether or not they're just, working with.
A good distinction to draw. The other story that kind of dovetails on this is the one I spoke about for January 6th. And I told Gary to
Mark Ibrahim.
Pull a clip of it. I'll play it for Mark.
This is a DEA agent?
This is a This guy's a DEA agent.
He was. He's no longer a DEA agent.
Yeah, he was fired by the DEA, and now he's looking at criminal charges for attending the rally on the 6th. But he never went into the Capitol building or did anything of that, and he didn't destroy any property or anything, but he was there at the rally, and he claimed an informant, and it's actually been substantiated, an informant, FBI agent, informant, not sure.
Informant.
Asked him to come down there, and keep the peace, like help him keep the peace. And I was reading, Gary was looking at an article on CNN that said he's in trouble because he had a gun, but as a DEA agent, he's sort of compelled to keep his gun on him when he moves about.
Correct. Correct. And he was, as I dug deeper into it once you and I were off the phone, a lot of different sites are taking this one picture where he's standing there sort of exposing the side of his jacket to show his badge and gun, and they're using that picture to sort of highlight that particular charge. But he was also charged with something that seems a bit obscure. It's a ordinance that prohibits anyone to stand on any statues or any planters. Basically, don't do anything that's not walking around in normal walking areas on the Capitol grounds. And if you do, then that's a felony that you can be charged with.
Right, which is a prosecution overreach if you're trying to get this guy for standing next to a statue or standing on a pedestal or something, you know, outdoors, essentially. Do you have that clip from Tucker Carlson?
Yeah, I can play you guys the intro where Tucker sort of explains the case. Let me put it up for you right now.
And Mark, you can tell us what you think. It reminded me because a guy was on with his lawyer, and whenever a guy's on with his lawyer, I always think of you. Here's the intro.
We told you a few weeks ago that some of the protesters at the Capitol building in Washington on January 6th appear to have been working with the FBI in secret, and that some of them may have encouraged protesters to break the law that day. And we didn't make that claim lightly. We had seen evidence in court documents suggesting that it happened. We're also aware of several other well-documented cases that appeared in the press in which the FBI effectively orchestrated crimes for which Americans were ultimately arrested and imprisoned. As we told you last night, that very thing just happened in the state of Michigan right before the last election. The much publicized attempt to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer was not at all what it seemed to be. As we've now learned, according to an account in BuzzFeed News, the majority of the so-called plotters in that case were in fact reporting to the FBI. There's a name for that. It was a setup, and it was immediately leveraged by the Joe Biden for President campaign for political advantage. So given all of that, we asked the obvious question: did anything similar happen on January 6th? We're not saying the entire thing was orchestrated by the FBI, but is it possible that some of the people there were actually reporting to the FBI and that they encouraged, as we said, others to commit crimes? That's an entirely fair question. But for asking it, the usual propagandists in the news media denounced us with maximum hysteria as conspiracy theorists and unpatriotic. They're still denouncing us now. But as it turns out, we were right to ask those questions, and tonight we'll show you why. Mark Ibrahim is a 32-year-old Army veteran who served in Iraq. On January 6th of this year, he was a federal agent. He worked for the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA. Ibrahim says he went to the Capitol that day because he was invited by an FBI informant, a man he had known in Iraq. We have confirmed this is true. We've reached out to that man, the man that Ibrahim went to the protest with. He denies he encouraged anyone to break the law, but that man did confirm that he has been an FBI informant. He confirmed the FBI knew he was at the Capitol that day, and he confirmed he invited Mark Ibrahim to the protest. Ibrahim says that if the two of them stood outside the building, the FBI informant turned to him and strongly encouraged him to enter the Capitol building. Ibrahim knew that was illegal, so he refused to do it. Ibrahim did not enter the Capitol that day in the end. He did not destroy property. He did not brandish his DEA-issued weapon. He did not remove it from its holster. He did not commit any violence of any kind. In fact, he repeatedly remarked that he disapproved of the rioting he saw at the Capitol. We know that he did because he said so on contemporaneous video. So that seemed to be the end of the story, an American citizen standing at a constitutionally protected political protest in his nation's capital. The next day, he flew to Los Angeles on a commercial flight, and on the flight, he carried his sidearm, which is legal. Federal agents in good standing are encouraged to keep their weapons with them, and he did. And the feds knew about it because he was on a plane. But then things took a bizarre and stunning turn. The DEA fired Ibrahim from his job for going to that protest on January 6th. When he came on this show to tell that story, Joe Biden's Justice Department doubled down. This week, the feds charged him with a number of felonies, including being too close to a federal monument. That would be Section 5104 of the U.S. Code, the law that makes it a crime to, quote, step on or climb on any statue, seat, wall, fountain, or other architectural feature, or any tree, shrub, plant, or turf in the Capitol grounds, end quote. Mark Ibrahim now faces 15 years in federal prison. This is a grotesque and a shocking story, but it is real. Mark Ibrahim joins us now, along with his attorney, Darren Ritchie. Thank you both for joining us. Darren Ritchie, first to you as the attorney. It's hard to see, based on the facts and the 16-page charging document that we have read, what exactly the crime is here that would justify 15 years in prison.
Well, to me, it looks like we really have a Department of Justice seeking quantity over quality. I don't see any crime here. The particular crime that you just mentioned with regard to 5104, in particular, Section B describes injuries to properties. No property was injured. No person was injured. No violence was committed. He didn't enter or breach Capitol grounds whatsoever. There's no crime, and we intend to defeat all of the charges in short order.
All right. So what?
That's interesting to me. Not only did he get fired, but then they brought I need to see the indictment because it's perplexing. It would seem at first glance that you do, the idea that you can attend a protest, you don't forfeit that right because you're a federal agent. In fact, you could make the argument, and maybe I didn't watch the whole segment, but I would assume that if he's down there and somebody is telling him something's going on, part of his defense would be, arguably, is that I was there to help keep the peace. I mean, if there is a contemporaneous tape of him saying, I'm not comfortable with people breaking in. I'm not comfortable with people going inside, or what the video has shown. I'm at a loss as to what the indictment's on. That's why I have to read the indictment to check it out. I was going to say, before you played this, I had read something today where they're talking about, and I know this has been reported multiple times, so whether it's true or not, who knows? But it's being reported that there's going to be a wave of indictments that are coming down. I don't know if this is the tip of the spear or not, but supposedly there's 200 or 300 indictments that are about ready to come down.
Yeah. My conspiracy theory as it pertains to this is, they've just put together a committee to study what happened on the 6th. I obviously, from Jump Street, I always just felt like this is a lot of hyperbole. And the reason I say hyperbole is because every politician I hear speaking about this says this is the greatest attack on American democracy since Pearl Harbor or since the Civil War. And I'm like, okay, it is what it is, but let's not turn it into more than what it was. And again, it was always officers shot, injured. It was the whole sick Nick, hit with the bludgeoned to death with a fire extinguisher stuff. There is a group, the Democrats, have a vested interest in turning this thing into something bigger, even if it started as big or it was huge. Whatever the conceit is, they want to supersize it. They want to add creatine to whatever this event was.
Well, the bigger problem, just from an investigative standpoint, you could the kind of the problem, and you're seeing it play out here, is you're never going to get a bipartisan committee on this for a variety of political reasons. I mean, the Republicans are not going to do it because the Republican Party is to some degree beholden to Trump, because the various members of the House are fearful that they'll get primaried out. The Democrats obviously are going to say this or that. But the problem from both sides is you would never be able to do this in a court of law where you had the victims, because any way you cut it, the members of Congress are the victims of the assault on the Capitol. They're not going to be able to investigate their own crime. So putting that aside, how are you ever going to then give any kind of credence to anything that comes out when it's basically going to be tainted by who is doing the investigation? That's why you would hope that you would have had, or you could have constructed a committee to do this, or an outside agency that would do the investigation, so you could at least say, okay, I've got some confidence that I'm not being worked here on one side or the other. I want to know. I mean, I would like to know. I have all kinds of questions I would like answered. I would love to know what was going on in actuality in the Capitol at the time. when they were moving him out. I would love to know, did President Trump at the time make an order? Did he not make an order? Did he sit back? I hear all kinds of reports. I'd like to know what the truth is. I'd love to know, rather than have Kevin McCarthy choose who it is he wants on the committee, I'd rather have him under oath testifying as to what he knew in real time and what he talked about and what his phone calls were. Instead, you get this kind of political theater where you're never going to be sure. You're going to always feel like you're worked or you're being worked.
Well, the argument would be from the right. The argument is going to be, we want to talk about what people knew in the days and weeks leading up to this, because there is a paper trail of the sergeant of arms or whatever at arms saying, hey, there's going to be a lot of people here. Maybe we should beef it up. And Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to go down that road because she ultimately makes that decision. And there was plenty of warnings that this could get out of hand and maybe we should bring more security out or National Guard or what have you. And they didn't want to do that. So she doesn't want to examine that part of it. That's the part that the Republicans want to do. The Democrats want to examine the part after that when the riot took place. And the Republicans are like, well, stop focusing so much on that. We're putting a committee together to figure out so this doesn't happen again. They always do that thing at the beginning where they go, here's why we need a committee. This can never happen again. Well, Nancy Pelosi doesn't want anyone on that committee that's going to ask what happened before the riot or the insurrection, which to me, if you're intellectually honest and you don't want it to happen again, we should figure out what led up to it, like the 9/11 report. The 9/11 report, we didn't pick it up after the second plane hit the tower. We picked it up before. What happened? What could we have known? How could we have planned better? Why didn't we see this happening? These guys were in Florida taking flight school, and they weren't interested in landing the planes, just takeoff. And that was, months or years earlier. We need to focus on that so this doesn't happen again.
Which is, by the way, basically what you're saying is you want some kind of a dispassionate investigation into what happened from start to finish. And yes. Which, as you say, if you're intellectually honest, is what every American should want. You should want to know what led up to it, what happened that day, who was responsible, who wasn't, and I don't know. It's just it's degenerated, I think, into to a point where the commission that is being formed, I think, has already they're having problems with it in the sense that nobody's ever going to embrace it on both sides of the aisle.
No, and they kicked off a couple of guys named Jim, but Jim Jordan was one of the guys who I like because Jim Jordan is one of the guys who invited me to speak to Congress about free speech about 3 or 4 years ago, as I recall.
I remember you testifying.
All right, let me tell you about Roman. Squeaky doors, clogged sinks, finicky engines. Things break, you take care of it. But what if something's off in the bedroom? Then you try not to think about it. Well, you should think about it with GetRoman.com/doubt. You go there now for free online evaluation for ongoing ED care from the comfort and privacy of your own home. A U.S. licensed healthcare professional will work with you to find the best treatment plan. If medication is appropriate, it'll be sent to you with free 2-day shipping. Get started. Getting started is simple. Just go to GetRoman.com/doubt and complete an online visit. Take care of your ED without leaving your home. It is Roman. GetRoman.com/doubt. Right, Gary?
That's right. Go to GetRoman.com/doubt now, and you'll get $15 off your first month. It's really time to take care of your ED. And remember, get started today, and you'll save $15 on your first order of ED treatment at GetRoman.com/DOUBT.
So, other stories in the world. In L.A., we're masking, we're remasking. It's probably going to be some more things shut down. I don't know what it's like in New York.
They haven't started in New York, but I was, I know that we talk about this quite a bit, but I'm perplexed by why it is there seems to be certain things that you can say. It seems to be that the people who are getting infected with COVID are unvaccinated for the most part. And the ones who are hospitalized or death are unvaccinated. It appears to be that if you're vaccinated, that ameliorates any kind of really horrific thing. So what I don't understand is, why is it that we are now saying that we're going to mandate masks indoors for everyone, including those who got vaccinated, so we can protect the unvaccinated from getting deleterious consequences? Do I have this right? What am I missing? What am I missing?
I think what you're missing, there's probably two things working simultaneously. First, I do love it because Ron DeSantis of Florida basically said, we're not telling kids to wear masks. There's no science. We're not going to have these school-age kids mask up and head back into the classroom. It's a waste of time. And then, of course, Jen Psaki from the White House goes, oh, this is wildly irresponsible, and he's putting these kids in danger. Well, remember when he was a Neanderthal in March because he opened his society, and remember, we're going to get all the body bags lined up. All I'm saying to CNN and Jen Psaki is, fine, we'll get the body bags ready. Please follow up your story when nothing happens in 6 months. Can you please follow it up? Because all you do is set the story up, but you never do it. You go down to Tampa, you plant your reporter from CNN, and they go, look at all these people partying after the Super Bowl. This is a super spreader event. These people aren't wearing masks. Okay, now report back to us in 2 weeks what happened at the party, at the Super Bowl party in Tampa. You don't do that part. You just do the doom and gloom part. Here's what's going to happen, but you never follow up when it doesn't happen. So masks are fairly worthless for kids. This thing doesn't hurt kids. They can be infected. This thing of like, well, then they get infected. CNN acts like 67% of Americans live with their grandparents. That's really what they do. Well, they go to school, they're fine, and then they come home and they infect Nana. Well, this isn't Italy, turn of the century. People don't fucking live with their elderly grandparents. But anyway, they want it because they like it. It's pure and simple. And you can think of me what you think. These people are fucking drunk with power, and they love telling you what to do, and it's slipping through their fingers. And how do I know this is what they want? It's the theme of every single thing they do. It's, don't lay down on the beach, mask up, we're closing outdoor dining, your kids can't go to school. If they go to school, they got to wear masks. If they play outside, they have to wear a mask. It's all about them and their control. And the reality is they cried wolf so long and so hard that a large percentage of Americans didn't get vaccinated, not because they were scared of the vaccine. It was a fuck you to CNN. I completely believe that.
Interesting. In California, you've got this, the only reason or the basis, and I've been pushing back and forth with this with various deputy attorney generals on the various cases we have. I said, look, the only reason, they'll say, well, there's a mask mandate now in LA County. I'll say, yeah, but the only reason Barbara Ferrer or Montu Davis get to make a mask mandate is because Gavin Newsom never repealed the emergency order. The emergency order remained in place. We talked about this a couple of months ago when he was opening up after the recall qualified. He opens up. Some intrepid reporter asked him, are you going to reverse the emergency order? And he says, no. So now you have an emergency order that allows unelected county bureaucrats to mandate mask mandates, which make little or no sense. There is no science for it. And as you've said, almost has the reversed effect. It emboldens the people who want to say "fuck you." Basically, they want to just say, "I'm going to give a flip the bird." It also is infuriating to a large swath of the population who did get vaccinated, who says, "Well, I did what I was supposed to do. I played along with this, and you told me that we weren't going to be here anymore, and here we are now, coming at the tail end of. We're going to be in August. More than 18 months since when this started, and we're still dealing with unelected bureaucrats. And the only thing I think that's going to get in the way here is that the recall election is not until September 14th. So can you imagine what the governor is doing right now? He must be sitting there going, God damn it, get me to September 14th. I've got to get to September 14th. So I don't know what to do. I should have recalled the emergency order. I didn't. Now look what it's got me. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, I mean, the argument is if you're not vaccinated, then we don't know the difference between vaccinated and unvaccinated people, so everyone wear your mask is kind of where we're at. Although even the science of the masks are fairly dubious. I mean, especially, as I always say, with the amount of time you're able to take it off, or with the casualness that some people wear it, under the chin and so on and so forth. It just feels, it all feels to me like if you declare an emergency, then you get to seize all the power you want. And these guys grabbed it and they like it. And if they didn't like it, then they would do what Florida does or Texas does and go, hey, you're citizens, go about your business. You want to ride a motorcycle with no helmet, that'll be on you. All right, Gary has a last update on Mark Ibrahim.
Yeah, I dug into the indictment and the documents, and it looks like one of the things that wasn't reported in Tucker's segment is that a few months ago in March, he was interviewed by the FBI over a secure video chat with his lawyer, and he denied having shown his gun or badge at all during his appearance there. And they, in the documents, they have like 17 pictures of him doing it various times. There's also pictures and video of him broadcasting from standing on top of a statue at an adjacent building. I believe it's called the Peace Monument or something like that. So there are a lot of documents and images that if you read the law on its face, which I think we all agree is a little silly the way how broad that law is written, he is clearly standing on top of a monument and on top of a statue and broadcasting video. So he might be in a little bit of trouble.
We just spent the last year and a half not arresting people that were trying to take down Lewis and Clark and Sacagawea with the fucking Molotov cocktails. Like, we just spent the last year and a half standing around watching people topple statues throughout the nation. The notion that the temerity to try to enforce this thing where the guy, well, he stood up on the pedestal next to Sir Walter Raleigh. That's laughable. I mean,
the code section, doesn't it say turf? You can't stand on turf. Does that mean you can't be on the grass?
I think so.
The code section says.
Yeah, I think that they're going to say that at a monument like the Capitol, everything is basically art or something, and you're to walk on the walkways and nowhere else.
If I was his defense lawyer, I'd put together a 2-hour montage of mobs tearing down statues in the last 10 minutes and go, how many of these people have you guys arrested thus far? And if the answer is 0, then you need to get to them. And then if you arrest all of them, we can save some time for my client. And the part about the gun and the badge, that seems pretty spurious too, because I don't think he pulled it out or brandished it.
No, but they were directly asking him, like, did you reveal that you had your gun and badge? And he said no. And there are many pictures where he is clearly holding his jacket to the side, and it'd be hard to come up with a reason he was doing that was not to show his badge and gun. No one holds their jacket to the side in the manner he was doing it.
Right, but why is it illegal to show your badge?
I don't think it is illegal. I think it's illegal to lie to an FBI agent if they directly ask you that question.
They're saying it's a 1001. It's a false statement.
Right.
That's exactly the code section I'm looking at.
What you have here is two fucking nothing burgers. You have standing next to a statue, zero burger, and you have doing something that's not illegal, but saying you didn't do it, which is illegal. Those are 2 zero burgers, and they're going after this guy. I just think they're trying to pad their statistics. I think they're going to go, we've had over 275 arrests and 250 felon, whatever, with the combined, 6,000 years potential jail time. Like they're trying, I feel like they're trying to pad their numbers. Or what? What's the other possibility of directing this much energy at a guy that ostensibly did nothing?
Well, he lost his job. I wonder if there's...
Well, actually, Mark, let me, before you opine on that, it also says in those documents that he had already informed the DEA that he was tendering his resignation, and he was never even a full employee. He was on a probationary status with them. So he had already informed them that he was planning to resign. So that might play into this as well.
So he doesn't get the wrongful termination act. All right, let me wrap it by telling you about AirMedCare Network. In this podcast, we dive into some unforeseen scenarios. So clearly, the unexpected does happen. If a medical emergency arises, an AirMedCare Network membership protects your family and your finances. AirMedCare Network provides air medical transport to the nearest and most appropriate trauma center. As a member, you'll never see a bill for that flight. That's right. Members never pay a dime for transport when flown by an AMCN provider. Health insurance may not cover the full cost of an emergency medical air transport, so it's important to get your membership because this covers it, and it covers everyone in your household for just pennies a day. It's AirMedCare Network, right, Gary?
That's right. Right now, Reasonable Doubt listeners get up to a $50 Amazon or Visa e-gift card when you join. Be prepared with an AirMedCare Network membership. Visit airmedcarenetwork.com/doubt and use offer code DOUBT.
All right. Mark.
Where are you headed?
I am staying in California. And
I'll get to see you this week then.
Yeah. When you back from New York?
I'm hoping to be back this weekend. So.
All right. I'm around. I will see you circumnavigating the neighborhood, taking your power walks. So you can go to adamcarolla.com for all the live show info, and you can check out our chassis channel at Pluto TV. I think it's channel 687 for a lot of free and good content there. Mark, what do you got?
We got go up to Naya in the Hamptons this weekend at the Capri Hotel, V Hotel in Palm Springs. Go down, sweat it out, or Casa Tropicana, or downtown 10E and Engine Company 28, both downtown and at the airport.
So until next time, this is Adam Carolla for Mark Garriga saying Mahala.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Tune in next Saturday for an all-new episode.